Tesla sells two features. One is called autopilot, the other is called full self-driving capability. Now, here's what Tesla says about them on their own support page in their own words, and we're going to read it exactly. So, autopilot and full self-driving capability are intended for use with a fully attentive driver who has their hands on the wheel and is prepared to take over at any moment. While these features are designed to become more capable over time, the currently enabled features do not make the vehicle autonomous. Now let that sit in. Autopilot, full self-driving, and the company that builds it tells you in writing that the car is not autonomous and your hands have to stay on the wheel. Nobody's lying to you there. Every word of that is public. But the name in the box and the sentence in the documentation are telling you two different stories. And people act on a name. Hold that thought, because we want to show you two numbers. Number one, EY published research this year. 98 of senior leaders whose organizations are investing in AI say that they've seen positive return on that investment. 98%. Yet number two, MIT's Gen AI Divide report found that roughly 95% of generative AI pilots could not demonstrate measurable return at all. 98% say it's working, 95% cannot prove it. Now, both of those numbers are real, and the space between them is where the enormous amount of money is currently disappearing. Today, we're going to show you exactly why that gap exists, what is costing you, and what to do about it starting Monday morning. Now, welcome to The Digital Dilemma. I am Nick Dreyfus, Vice President of Business Development at iNet. Now, if you're a CEO, CFO, this episode is especially for you. Not for your IT director, you. Because the decision that determines whether your AI spend shows up on the P&L are not technical decisions. They're budget decisions, incentive decisions, and org decisions. Those are yours. Before we go one step further, we want to say something clearly because this episode is going to sound harsh in places we do not want to be misunderstood. Now, we're not here to tell you AI does not work. It works. Our team has been working with this technology in one form or another for over a decade. The AI nerds in AI were doing this long before it had marketing department. What we're telling you is something different, and it is uncomfortable. Most companies cannot prove whether AI is working. It is not the same problem as AI is not working. It is a measurable problem, an expectations problem, and a targeting problem. And that every single one of these is fixable. So here is what we're going to cover. 5 things. 1, the truth about what is technology actually is, because almost every bad AI investment traces back to getting one of these things wrong. Number 2, why we save 10 hours a week is not financial result and the exact question you should ask the moment somebody says it to you. 3, where to point AI first, because not all saved hours are worth the same amount of money. This one surprises most executives. 4, when to kill an AI project. We're going to give you a single sentence to put into your approval document before you spend $1. And 5, the 2 questions to ask any AI vendor before you sign anything. At the end, we'll give you one thing to do this week that costs you nothing. Now let's get into it. Let's start with the thing nobody selling you AI is going to say out loud. It's not artificially intelligent. The easiest way to explain a large language model to somebody is that it is essentially a database. Something like a Google search that does a really good job of figuring out what you are talking about and what the answer should be. But there's a critical difference. And this is the difference is the whole ballgame. A database looks something up. It goes and finds the record and hands it to you. If it does not have a record, you're going to get nothing or a hallucination. That is not what this does. Let me say that again. A database looks something up and it goes and finds that record and hands it to you. If it does not have that record, you get nothing. Now, that is not what this does. This does not look anything up. It predicts. It is guessing based on everything it has ever seen and what the next word should probably be. Now, that is why it hallucinates. That is the entire mechanism. It is not malfunctioning when it makes something up. It is doing exactly what it was built to do, which is produce the most probable looking next thing. Sometimes most probable looking answer is not a true one. And here is why that should worry a CFO more than the database ever would. A database that fails gives you nothing. You know immediately. There's a blank screen and it just tells you no answer found. The prediction engine that fails gives you something. It gives you a confident, well-written, professionally sounding answer that is probably completely false and has no idea what's going wrong. Like they told one person recently on Reddit to glue the cheese to a piece of pizza together. Use Elmer's glue to make sure the cheese does not slip off the pizza. There is no mechanism in there for knowing. There is even research from OpenAI, the people building these systems, pointing out that hallucinations persist in part because of how these models get trained and tested. The scoring rewards confident answers over honest, I don't know. So the machine is incentivized to guess. And it guesses well enough that most people cannot tell, especially if you're not a professional in that industry. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They're utilizing answers that come up that could be hallucinated because it's a topic they know little about. So they're not able to correct those. And then those answers compile on each other because someone's using that data over and over and over again. That's been a hallucinated answer. Now, this brings us back where we opened, full self-driving capability. And then in that same paragraph on their own website, the currently enabled features do not make the vehicle autonomous. Both of those are true at the exact same time. The name describes where the technology is headed. The disclaimer describes where it actually is today. And the gap between those two gets filled by whatever the customer assumes. Here's the part that matters more for you. People act on the name. Almost nobody reads the documentation. Now, say the words artificial intelligence out loud and ask yourself what they promise. Same structure, a name that describes the destination, sold to people who reasonably assume it describes the product sitting in front of them. Nobody has to lie for that to happen. The name does the work all by itself. And this is the root of ROI problem we are going to spend the rest of this episode on. Companies are budgeting for something that thinks. They're buying something that predicts. And then they buy, and then they're confused when the numbers don't show up. Now, so if this is not thinking, what is it good for? Because it is good for a great deal. And here it is. You cannot have AI thinking. You can have AI flagging. It needs to be black and white, on or off, yes or no. Is this invoice above $10,000? Yes. Then it goes here. If this is $9,000.99, then no, it goes there. This is exactly what the technology is genuinely excellent at, taking something repetitious and clear-cut and doing it at scale and speed no human can match, and then flagging a handful of things that are out of the ordinary so the human can take a look at them and make that actual decision. The humans do the thinking. Humans make the high-level decisions. The machine handles what's repetitious and easy and raises its hand when something looks strange. That is the correct division of labor. Every AI deployment we have seen produce real value respects that line. And in our experience, a large share of the ones that fail are the ones that are asking the machine to do the thinking. Write that sentence down if you write nothing else down today. You cannot have AI thinking. You can have AI flagging. Now let's talk about how this actually goes wrong inside a real company with real money. Here is the scenario. Somebody on your team comes to you and says the new AI tool is saving us 10 hours a week. Everybody nods. Someone puts it on a board deck. Now, let's ask two questions. Is that 10 hours per employee, or is that 10 hours total per the team? Is it 10 hours a month, 10 hours a week? Because 10 hours across 100 employees is not really that good. That is 6 minutes a person. That is a rounding error with a slide deck attached. 10 hours per employee per week across 100 people, that's a completely different business. That is 1,000 hours. So get the unit right before you get excited. In our experience, this is where about half of the impressive sounding AI numbers quietly fail. Now, the harder one. 10 hours a week are being saved. Nobody got laid off. Payroll is identical. Revenue didn't move. Did that company make any money? The honest answer, no, not yet. And that's the distinction that almost nobody makes. So we want to be precise about that. Saved hours are not a return. They're an option. You have brought yourself the right to do something with that time. You have not collected anything yet. You collect only when those hours get redeployed into something that produces revenue or protects revenue. If nobody redeploys them, the option expires and it's worthless. And it expires quietly, which is worse because everybody still believes it worked. What is the option that is worth when you actually use it? Now, to be clear, when it does get redeployed, the math is genuinely exciting. Let's take a salesperson. Give them back 10 hours in a month, real time they can spend looking into things that are going to drive the needle, finding opportunities, expanding the portfolio, or even better, going back to current clients and adding solutions they don't have today in a cross-sales situation. 10 hours per salesperson in a month should find you 3 to 5 quality opportunities. That is going to be real needle moving. And even if only one of those closes, that's real money. That is money moving forward. That is expanding reach, expanding capability, expanding what you are able to offer. Now, that is the whole purpose of this. Not the 10 hours, what the 10 hours becomes. So where do those hours actually go? Here's the problem. In most companies, nobody ever makes that happen. And we want to be clear about where we put the blame, because it is not where most people put it. What happens is this: the CEO and CFO hand their team a tool and they say, figure it out. That is not how this works. Because when people find that something is saving them time, they're not going to walk into your office and volunteer. Nobody is coming in to you and saying, hey, boss, I've got 10 extra hours. What else can I take on? Some of them will. Most of them probably will not. They're going to use that time and spend more time maybe with their family, maybe a mental break, maybe doing something that is still important to the organization that may not show up on that bottom line. And all those things are real. We want to be clear. That is not a character flaw. That is completely rational human being responding to the incentives you actually built, as opposed to the ones you had in your head. Now, let's take, for example, if we were to repurpose those 10 hours and instead of working 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, we turn that into 4 8-hour days. Would the morale go up in the entire organization? How many of you have found that working on a Friday is essentially useless, that not many people are actually around to move the needle and pretty much everybody's gone by noon? You did not ask them to redeploy time. You did not tell them where to point. You did not give them a reason to. So the hours got absorbed into the work that was already sitting there. And the day they got slightly less brutal and nothing whatsoever happened to your P&L. That's the 95%. That's the whole finding. MIT did not discover that AI does not work. They discovered that nobody was standing at the other end catching what it produced. Fixing it, incentives, and aim. Here's my favorite part. 2 fixes, and they work together. The first one is incentives. If you want people to find ways to use that time and grow the business, tell them so. And share that upside. An extra % of sales, an extra of additional cross-sold business, Whatever fits your model. Incentivize people to go look for ways to grow revenue, save time, improve customer service, make it worth their time, and hand you back hours instead of quietly keeping them. If your customer service improves and 20 to 30% less organizations leave your company every single year, that's money by the end of the year. Even if your pipeline didn't grow, you saved more accounts. Share that with your people, because if you do, they're going to find more and more ways. And if you continue to improve customer service, customers stay and then involve themselves in more cross-selling solutions. That is only going to hit the bottom line. And a real note of caution here, because this is well-intentioned, owners get themselves in trouble. Structure it in writing and run it past your employment counsel before you announce it, maybe even legal. 2 specific reasons. A non-discretionary bonus generally has to be folded in to the regular rate of pay for your non-exempt employees, which changes how their overtime is calculated. Companies get burned on that constantly, and we can't have that happen. We want this to be a positive for all of your team and everybody involved, including the business. Everybody has to win, and your people will know that. And second, a revenue share you promised verbally and never documented has a way of turning that into a wage claim 18 months later. Good idea, bad execution, expensive lesson. Do it properly. Now, the second fix is aim. Do not point the freed hours at whatever seems interesting. Point them at your worst number. If your business is that 25% of your clients are transitioning every year off of your organization, that's your worst number. So the freed hours go to customer service. How do we take the client who is on the edge, who is maybe unhappy, who was one of the bad interactions from leaving, and change that? Just give every employee 10 extra hours. You should be able to find ways to keep meaningful share of what you were about to lose. Even if they're only using 2 of those 10 hours and you're still giving them Friday off and they saved half of those 25%, what's the new bottom line by the end of the year? Massive growth. Everybody wins. Your team gets Fridays off and you saved customers from leaving. Retention is revenue. And it is the cheapest revenue you will ever get because you already paid to acquire it. The next point may be the most valuable thing in the episode, and we almost never hear anyone say it. Not all saved hours are worth the same amount of money. Here's what I mean. Suppose you save your accounting team 5 hours a week per person. Genuinely useful, real time back. Now ask the question, what are they going to turn that 5 hours into? They're not going to walk out into the sales field and help sales team close more business. Maybe they could, but that's not the general interest of accounting people. That's not their job, and it's not probably their skill set. Now, you could have some people that could be into it, and that would be great, but those are edge cases. So in most organizations, if you free up accounting time, that is probably not going to end up on the bottom line as additional revenue. It might reduce stress. It might reduce errors. It might make month end less painful. And those are absolutely real goods, but it is not going to show up in the number your board is asking about. Free up 5 hours in accounting and you get 5 hours of accounting. Now do the same thing in sales. Free up 5 to 10 hours a week for a salesperson and something entirely different happens. That person can go find more clients. They can sell more services to the clients they already have. They can run a campaign they've never had time for, or do networking at events and groups that they've never been able to have time for. And the AI work here is genuinely straightforward because it is exactly the flagging work we described earlier. Automatically logging what happened after the meeting, flagging things in the CRM, making sure the follow-up actually goes out, making sure the text message gets sent, making sure leads never go missed. None of that requires a machine to think. All of it requires the machine to notice and flag. It converts directly into revenue. Client success is the other one. Same logic. Free up client success time and you keep more clients. Less attrition, more repeat buyers, and every client you keep is product you sell without paying to acquire the buyer ever again. That hits the bottom line directly. Marketing is worth a mention as well. Save your marketing team time and maybe they run one extra campaign. Even if that campaign completely fails, you learn something. If you're running 4 campaigns instead of 2, you're going to find one that works maybe much faster and one that works that could explode and grow the whole organization in 3 to 6 months from now. So here's the rule. Before you automate anything, ask, if we could give this department their time back, what will they do with it and what moves the needle? How would we incentivize them for doing that so that everybody wins? Now, if you have a good answer, go. If you do not have a good answer, that's probably not the place to start. Now, if you're just looking for a quick win, maybe it is a quick place to start, no matter how obvious that automation looks. Now, one exception, and it is fair, if you're just trying to get an early win, prove the concept, and build some confidence in building, then absolutely go automate invoice processing, get an easy one, show people that the AI works. Just do not call it ROI. Call it what it is, which is a training exercise. It might turn into something real, maybe down the road. Right now, it's practice. Now, the one number on the CFO slide, 90 days after go live, you open one slide. What is on it? Not hours saved, not seats deployed, not user satisfaction. Movement in the one business number it was brought to fix. Pipeline volume, close ratio, time to close, sales friction, attrition. Pick one, name it before you start, and measure that. Here's the number that should bother you most out of everything we've cited today. A 2026 analysis from Beam.ai found that 61% of AI projects were approved on the project ROI that was never measured after launch. 61% approved on a promise, and nobody ever went back to check. You cannot have a return you never verified. That is not ROI, it's just a feeling. Let's talk about how these projects actually die, slowly and expensively. Here is a pattern we have watched more than once. We're describing a composite here rather than one on an organizational level. A company decides they're going to build an internal AI team. Smart people, good intentions, real budget. They bring in tools and run models themselves, and they set out to build something nobody else has. Then 6 months goes by, then one more. Nothing's been deployed, nothing's touched marketing or advertising or closed additional business. Not one thing is doing any real work. They're swinging for a home run, something enormous, something proprietary, something that may not ever show up in the numbers. And the entire time, the small wins, they were sitting right there. The ones that stacked up into something real, and they went untouched. Why it takes so long? 3 reasons. And one of them are not that the people are not smart. Reason number 1, they're trying to make it do 47 things. Instead of automating one or a small chunk of tasks, one clean piece at a time, they build one enormous thing that has every handle for every case. And every additional case is another place for a prediction engine to guess and get that answer wrong. So it never quite works and it never quite gets deployed. Reason 2, they do not know what they don't know. The person leading it may be excellent at marketing or whatever function they're trying to automate, but building agents, totally different discipline. It is software, programming, logistics, integration, open APIs, MCP servers, and way more. This is a real skill set and it takes real time to build. So they're learning it while they're doing it. The problem there is as they're learning it, the technology's advancing. So as they advance, they could be behind what the current product is. Reason 3, this is where nobody warns you about. It is a moving target. Every time they educate themselves, the plan changes. The MCP standard gets updated. APIs change underneath them all. What is learned in month 1 or month 2 is partially obsolete by month 4. They're not failing because they're slow. They're chasing something that keeps moving. And why nobody pulls the plug? So why does it go 6 months, 9 months, a year? Because a company starts investing down one route. They're going to exhaust it, and the reason they keep doing it is that they're probably seeing daily small improvements. That is a little better today than it was yesterday. That feels like progress. It's very hard to walk away from something that is improving, even when it's improving toward a finish line that keeps moving away from you. So there is a human part, and the employee is not going to walk in and say, this sucks. It's never going to work. They're going to do everything they can to try and make it work. They're invested. Their name's on it. Their credibility is definitely attached to it, and they want to feel like the hero. Nobody wants to be that person who said AI doesn't work. This is not a bad employee. That is a great employee in really a bad structure that may not have the right partner helping them where they could be really benefited, which means it's your job as the executive leadership team to build that structure for them and with them. It's a tripwire. So here's what we would put the approval document before that project starts, before anybody gets emotionally attached to it. If by 60 to 90 days, we're not seeing the agent operating on its own, completing real work in a production, we stop. And we do not restart until we have a partner who can finish what we started. 60 days for something simple, 90 days for something maybe a little more involved. You picked based on the project. And note what operating on its own means here, because we want to be consistent with everything we said at the top of this episode. It means it completes work without humans constantly interacting with it. It does not mean nobody is accountable for the output. Somebody still owns that result every single time. Somebody still reviews the exceptions, the flags, and even the stuff that's not getting flagged. It's a narrow task running by itself with a human owning the outcome always. That's the win. Not the machine is going to think for us. Build a partner, which leads to practical rule. If you need an agent built and nobody on your team has actually built one before and shown it to you working, partner with someone. If someone on your team has genuinely done this before, they've built agents, they can show you what they made and how it runs, then absolutely let them build. Even if it's a side project while you have your partner helping you build that real structure in the very beginning, let them build the layovers, the stuff that might be a little bit easier down the road. That's the real asset, and you should use it. But if it's going to be someone learning on your dime, on a moving target, in a discipline they've never worked in, be honest with yourself about what that's going to cost in time and in that delay. Your competition could be leapfrogging you because they hired a partner 2 months ago. Otherwise, the split is simple. Buy your tool, buy your LLM, run your email, your basic infrastructure with it, and leave anything agentic to a partner who has done it before. And there's a second reason for which that people do not think about, and it's too late. It is going to break. It might not. It will. The APIs will change. The standards are going to shift. Something will stop working on Tuesday afternoon when it's absolutely critical for the team. What happens then? You want someone who could look at it and say, we know exactly what it is, or we're going to look into it with the tools that we have. Someone who's seen problems like this before, they're going to be able to react faster than your team member who's never worked in technology before working with AI. I've been in this field for over 30 years and agentically building for probably a decade or more. We're going to swap this out and do this, test it, and get you back up and running. If that person who built it learned it on the fly 6 months ago, that outage is going to last a lot longer than it needs to. Can your business afford that? Now, let's say you've done all of this. You know what you want automated. You know which department you're pointing directly at. You know your tripwire, and you're sitting across from a vendor. What do you ask? I'm going to give you the 2 questions. Can you give me references you're doing this for someone else? Not references that you exist, references that people like working with you, references for this specific capability from companies that have it running. If they have done it, they will have them. If they hesitate, you have learned something important about in that 4 seconds. Question 2, will you give me a 30-day trial? Because in 30 days, honestly, in 2 weeks, you're going to know whether they are properly equipped to doing that work or not. You do not need a year. You do not need a committee. You don't need to watch it run against your actual data and your actual process. The fair caveat. Now, here's where we want to be fair to the market, because right now there's a lot of blind leading the blind out there. In our experience, a number of companies doing this genuinely well are smaller than the numbers claiming to do it. But that also means that there is a good group of new companies who have not sold to anybody. So if a newer company cannot give you references, that's not an automatic no. Ask them the other versions of the question. Will you give us the solution at a low cost or free for a trial period, just so we can see what it does? Or will you connect us a few things right now and show us how this would help the sales team, the accounting team, or whatever it is? If they will prove it, listen to them. A vendor who will prove it cheap is telling you something a reference list cannot. If they will not do either one, if there are no references and no trial and no demonstration against your own data, then what they're selling you might just be a slide deck. And we're seeing that a lot today. Now let's bring it home. 5 things. 1 is not artificially intelligent. It is a prediction engine. It guesses at the next word based on everything it has seen. This is why it hallucinates. And it is why a confident answer is more dangerous than no answer at all. You're budgeted for something that thinks. You brought something that predicts. 2, saved hours are not return. They're an option. 10 hours a week means nothing if payroll did not move and revenue did not move. You collect only when those hours deliberately redeployed, and they were redeployed themselves because handling your team a tool and saying, figure it out, not a plan. 3, not all saved hours are worth the same. Free up accounting and you get more accounting time. Free up sales and you get client success, you get pipeline, retention, cross sales. Point AI at the function whose hours convert to revenue and or a task that you really need to work on for your organization. Aim it at that worst number, whatever it is. 4, decide how it dies before it's born. 60 to 90 days in most of these simple automations should be more than enough time. Operating on its own real work in production, or you stop. Put in the approval document so the decision is already made before anybody falls in love with it. 5, 2 questions before you sign. References for this specific thing and a 30-day trial. If they will give you neither, you should probably walk away. Now, what to do Monday morning that costs you nothing? Here is the one action. It requires no budget, no vendor, no software. Sit down with your teams individually, not all together, accounting by itself, sales by itself, marketing by itself, client success by itself, any and all departments you have, and ask them the one question. What are the tasks you are spending a lot of time on that you feel a junior $15 an hour worker could probably do? This is where AI is going to be best. Every single time, repetitious, clear cut, black and white. The flagging work, not the thinking work. Your team knows exactly what those tasks are. They've been doing them for years and quietly resenting them. Nobody's ever asked. Then do the second half. And this is the second half that's the most important and most people skip. Go back through the list, department by department, and then ask, if we give this department that time back, what could they do with it that moves the needle for us? Sales is usually the easiest one. Give each person sales from the sales department 5 to 10 hours back a week, a month, even just per month. They can run another campaign or cross-sell to their existing clients. There are real things that they can do there that will turn into moving the needle. That helps the whole company run better. Marketing, maybe that is one extra campaign. And one extra campaign is one more shot at finding the thing that works. Client success, that's attrition. And attrition is your cheapest revenue in your entire business. If a department has a strong answer to that question, that is where you start. If a department does not have a good answer, put it on the list for later, no matter how easy the automation would be. That exercise costs you an afternoon. That's it. It will save you some of your 6 figures in all of these deployments. One sentence, If you remember nothing else from the last half hour, remember this. You cannot have AI thinking. You can have AI flagging. It should be black and white, on or off, very easy to understand. It should never be doing the thinking. The humans do the thinking and the high-level decision-making. The machine handles what is repetitious and easy and raises its hand when something looks out of the ordinary. So a person can go look at it. Let me say that again. That is what it does best. That is what it's actually for. And in our experience, the companies that respect that line are the ones whose numbers actually show up in real revenue. Now, if you want help, if you're sitting there realizing you can't answer the 90-day question for your AI you've already bought and you're not alone. This is most of the market right now, and the research we cited today says so. Now, here's our team and how it approaches plainly, and there's many organizations like us out there. We sit down with you based on your vertical, and we come in with specific questions for your kind of business. Because a distributor and a professional service firm and a nonprofit do not have the same opportunities. Then we show you how we've helped someone else in your same vertical, what we built, what it does, and what it did for the team. Then we put you on the phone directly with them, a reference directly with them and their team so you can hear it from the people that lived, not just from us. That is it. No pressure, no commitment. And if it is not a fit, you still walk away knowing more about where you own opportunities and are than when you sat down in the first place. The link to getting the conversation started is in the description below. We will see you on The Digital Dilemma. Your team focuses on growth. Our team makes that happen. My name is Nick Dreyfus, Vice President of Business Development for iNet. This has been The Digital Dilemma. Have a great day.